We're buying notes that are at least 6 months behind, up to 6 years behind.
Oh, wow. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Taking the Land today. I am here with my guest, Scott Carson, whom you are going to love because we're going to talk about wholesaling notes. And Scott is all about notes. And I'm just going to give you a quick, but I don't want to leave out any dirty details about Scott. Little here. Our special guest, Scott, is an active real estate investor and entrepreneur since 2002, focusing on the niche of distressed mortgage notes. And that really intrigues me. He has a lot to teach, and I hope that we have enough time to pull a lot of that out of him so that you can get at least some lessons. So take a notepad and a pen out, because you're going to want, it's not just an interview here. We're going to really try to teach you the concept of wholesaling notes. All right. So he's purchased since 2008 over $1 billion in distressed notes on residential and commercial properties all across the country. He's helped thousands of real estate investors just like you and I, and entrepreneurs create wealth through his debt buying tactics and classes, helping his students close thousands of deals. He also hosts the nationally syndicated radio and podcast Note Closers Show podcast with millions of listeners. An avid sports fan, he spends his free time traveling, gardening, and making memories. He calls Austin, Texas home with his wife, Stephanie, and their four-legged children. So help me welcome Scott. Yay. Okay, so Scott, thanks for being here. And so tell us how you got started in the note buying business.
Yeah, no problem, Sharon. Glad to share that. So I was lucky. I started a mortgage company actually back in 2002 with a buddy of mine, and our sponsoring broker was teaching and traveling the country, teaching creative financing, wraparound mortgages, owner financing, and also taught the niche of non-performing notes. And as everything started to hit the fan back in 2008, he's like, this is a prime time to be diving into the non-performing note space. And so I just basically traded my origination hat for going out and started buying notes, non-performing mortgages from the banks that I was originating for, the lenders. And that's kind of how I got started. So I had basically a 4-year apprenticeship in creative financing in the paper game.
That's cool. We all kind of start somewhere and then find something that speaks to us and jump into it. Like for me, I started out flipping houses and I was like, there's got to be a better way. I was buying from wholesalers, but I didn't understand what they did. So, it was that learning curve. And then I had no choice but to jump into a different niche that didn't involve me being out at the houses. And I kind of learned wholesaling real estate overnight. And I've stuck with that always as a side thing to do, because it just generates a lot of income with the least amount of work and the biggest reward while I'm flipping, while I'm doing all these other things. And as every time I've heard you, I've said, I'm going to go out and do that too, because I'm in the business already. And so because of that, I actually ended up not buying notes and keeping them, but wholesaling notes. And so I want to talk about that, because you can wholesale notes as well. You don't have to own them. You don't have to use your money to buy it. You can do just like we do with houses. And you don't need a real estate license, and you can do what Scott is doing. You don't have to start out on a huge scale like Scott. And he teaches you, no matter what level you want to be doing this at, how to do it. So let's kind of start from A to Z and walk through the transition of what that looks like in the note business from a wholesale perspective. Can you start with what would be the first thing that you would tell your students to go out and do, or tell these listeners that they could go out and do? Well, first of all, I'm sorry, Scott, let's back up and let's make sure everybody understands, the difference between the distress note and the performing note, and, why we're going to go after one and not the other.
So a mortgage where somebody's paying on time, that's a performing note. It's handled by a third-party servicer in most cases, and it's the borrower paying on time. They're paying every month in and out. That's a performing note. You also have the opposite side, which we see a lot of right now, non-performing notes, where people aren't paying. And usually you have some that are just behind. Then you have stuff that's in default, where the borrower is not paid in at least 90 to 120 days plus. oftentimes we're buying notes that are at least 6 months behind, up to 6 years behind.
Oh, wow.
Somebody hasn't paid. And people always ask, why hasn't a bank foreclosed if somebody hasn't paid in 6 years? I said, well, a lot of these mortgages get sold in portfolios, or they sold off as different tranches, as they say. And one seller may hold on to them and focus on a chunk, get them reperforming. And some of the bottom of the barrel doesn't mean they're bad deals. They just don't ever get around to them as they service them all off, or, foreclosure timeframes are different in every state and it just varies. So non-performing note is usually what we're going, where somebody hasn't paid in at least 90 days a minimum. Scratch and dent might be another term you hear, where somebody's only like 30 to 60 days behind, but they get back on track. So we like to target non-performing as an ex-fix and flipper here in Austin, Texas, too, and rehabber. I like that because I get a much bigger discount buying non-performing notes, and you make money by either like wholesaling it to another investor like me, who will then take the note over, try to work it out with a borrower, get them back on track. Often, cash to walk away, deed in lieu. If they won't do that, maybe you can do a short sale, or you can turn around and then have to foreclose. Because remember, if you're buying the note, you're becoming the bank, and you have all the same rights as the bank does. So that's where you make your money on the note business side, is by getting the borrower back on track, so they start becoming a performing note again, or in some sort of way to liquidate the property if the borrower won't be able to work with it, either through, like I said, friendly terms, or through legal actions if they won't play with you.
Right. So the bottom line is, investors, like when you find a house that's in default and you can't find the sellers, because you have to have the sellers in order to sign title over to you, there's no other way to buy the house unless you can come in through the back door, if you will, and deal with the lender who's got the loan on that property and basically buy their position. So explain what that looks like, and how they would find out who that is and how to go after them.
I'm gonna make one big clarification. You're not gonna buy a one-off note from Bank of America, Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, the big 5 or 6. It's just not worth them to deal with a one-off note. Let me just make that clarification. A lot of times we're seeing stuff in regional banks, some pretty good sized large banks, but not the big 5 or 6. They just don't play in a one-off space. So I'll make that clarification. So if we find a note, looking at the pre-foreclosures list is one thing we look at in states that have a little bit longer foreclosure time frame. We'll target by calling the bank's corporate office and trying to find the person in charge of their special assets department is one title they go by, special asset manager. Secondary marketing manager is another title, chief credit risk officer, or the whole loan trading desk. Those are kind of 4 titles that these bankers have, that they handle the distressed loan sales. All right.
And the idea, get on the phone with you.
They will actually get on the phone with you. We contact them either via dialing for dollars or jumping on LinkedIn and tracking them down on LinkedIn.
Oh, great tips, guys. I hope you're writing this down.
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, you can type in special assets manager and it'll pull up like thousands and thousands of people. And it's just a matter of, it's like anything else. You got to follow up. But the beautiful thing that I love sharing is, in the note business, we don't do any direct mail. We're not dropping thousands of dollars on postcards or yellow letters, and there's nothing wrong with it. Been there, done that, but it just doesn't work because we're dealing directly with bankers, So we go to the banks, and then the banks will send us often a what they call a pool, or it's basically an Excel spreadsheet with anywhere from 1 to thousands of their non-performing notes that they're looking to move off, and they'll often give us some sort of pricing expectations, or as we say it in our world, color, as the type of discount that they're looking to accept or take. And then it's a matter of, like anything else, starting to do some due diligence and see if what pricing makes sense, and if there's enough meat on the bone to either if we're gonna take it down ourselves, great. If not, if we're gonna wholesale it, making sure that we leave plenty of meat on the bone for the end buyer, but still make our profit.
So are you at this point used to wholesaling, a package of notes versus 1 or 2?
We've done both, and it just varies on the port. We're often buying notes for our own portfolio right now, but we will move onesie twosies out there, and I'll tell you this, every note investor is a buyer and a seller. All right. So that's the thing. I mean, every investor is like that too. We're buying,
right.
I'll give you a great example. We were looking at buying a portfolio of 60 assets last month. Out of the 60, 25, we were wholesaling, and we were going to keep the other 35. But the fact that we were going to buy in a bigger bulk package gave us a bigger discount compared to onesie twosies individually.
Right. Awesome. So, in one of the last situations I had like this, it was really a fluke type situation where, the couple was in foreclosure, they're going through a divorce, and one of them reached out and said, "Hey, can you buy the house?" And we're like, "Yeah, absolutely." We made a deal with the guy, but the wife refused to sign anything, so there was no way now that we could buy it. No way. And so, because he was behind literally in both mortgages, but the second was willing to talk, even though they were one of these big guys, I thought, well, this is really interesting. So, we were able to buy the second at pennies on the dollar. And we wholesaled it right before the foreclosure auction. It was a whole lot of scenario that you would totally understand. Because there was still equity behind the first, he took it to the sale. So we made our money and we're out, and he continued the foreclosure with the same attorney. And then he made money again. And so, I think that was probably just a fluke thing that I walked into. It certainly wasn't our intention to buy that note. But because of this kind of training being available, you didn't just walk away. You were able to stay in a deal and go, wait, I can't do this, but I can do this, right? And that's why it's so important to seek out all the type of education that people like you and I offer, and, and get into the coaching programs where you have somebody teaching you how to stay in a deal and make money rather than just hanging up on people, walking away because you don't know there's another way. And
Yeah.
so what would you say to a new investor? They have not really got their feet wet in anything yet about going into this note thing. Like they're like, hey, I don't have enough money to take a package of 60 down. How could I find that one private guy, and that's got a defaulting mortgage, and kind of get my feet wet with a few of these people, kind of like you would if I was teaching people how to go after those distressed sellers, vacant houses, and, find them.
So let's take it from that point, is instead of going after borrowers like many people are used to, go after the banks. Every bank has non-performing paper. So let me give you a bit of an example. Like one of my first deal that I wholesaled, and it's a very similar strategies. I knew that there was a property here in Austin, Texas that was in default, and I was getting ready to buy it, and I realized that they canceled the sale because the mortgage was sold to somebody. I was like, what? So I tracked down, I was like, okay, the lender on it was Capital One, or Greenpoint Mortgage back in the day was their commercial branch. So I started contacting Capital One. It took me a few weeks to get the right department and being transferred all over. But after my 70th phone call, I got the right person. Okay. But after I told her what I was trying to do, say, do you have any non-performing notes for sale? She sent me a PDF. Oftentimes they send an Excel spreadsheet, but it was a 33-page PDF in 6-point font with all their stuff across the country. Okay. So I'm like, oh my God, overwhelmed with, I'm in Austin, Texas. What's going on? So I look at my network of where I had investors at, and I had a relationship with people. And I saw, looked at California, because that's always a hot market. And I saw this property in San Diego. It was a 8-unit apartment complex in San Diego. And I was like, okay, great. And I started negotiating with the bank. I did a little due diligence, saw it was occupied. The borrower was like 8 months behind, using his own personal ATM. It's worth about $700. The borrower only owed like $540 on it, if I remember correctly. Well, I was able to negotiate the bank to sell me the note at $375. Okay. And they gave me 60 days for due diligence and closing. Now, most investors, 60 days to close, that's a ton of time. Most people can raise capital if the deal makes sense. Well, I started marketing it out on meetup groups and my email blast like you would with anything else. You want to get people interested, right? You got to market. You can't be a secret agent in this business and succeed, right? And so I had an investor buddy of mine, Matt, reached out to me. He was interested in the deal. I told him it was a note deal that he'd have to take over the bank's position and then foreclose, and it could take a little while. He was fine with that based on the deal. So I originally was trying to make a $50,000 wholesale fee on it. We ended up negotiating it to $35,000. So I sold it to him for $415. So the contract from the bank said $375. I created my one-page, assignment of contract form, which is pretty easy, or a wholesaling fee form when you saying that he was going to pay me $35,000 for my position. At day 45, him and his two investors wired the the 415 to my account. I turned around and wired the 375 to the bank at Capital One. We kept my profit in the bank until we made sure all the documents and the transfer docs were sent over. And then when he said, yep, he had received the collateral file and the assignments that transferred the loan ownership from capital one to him, and he said we're good to go. So we released 35. It's a pretty good happy dance, and then Matt, it took him 8 months to end up foreclosing and taking the property back, and he made 150 grand 8 months later down the road from working with it. But for 35 grand in 45 days, that's a pretty good ROI for me, because I had zero money tied up. When you're buying notes, you don't have to put up earnest money. You don't have to put up, there's not inspection fees. You're doing a lot of online due diligence. You may have somebody drive by and take a look at it, but you're looking at the collateral file. That's really what you're buying, is the loan docs. And I actually have a loan file right here that we're working through. This is really what you're buying that backs the property. So it's just a bit of a due diligence. If we are making an offer on a portfolio, individual assets, and we see that something's wrong with the property, the value doesn't come back, taxes are higher, it's in bad condition, we can cancel and kill the bid with no penalty. And that's a beautiful thing, because a lot of people in traditional real estate, you got to go under contract a lot of times, and then you're under the gun, or 7 days for inspections and stuff like that. And we don't run into that in the note business.
Yeah, that is a good point. A lot of folks are, especially investors that have limited capital, they're not sure how they can invest in things. That's another reason I love wholesaling, even real estate.
Yeah.
There's very, very little capital, sometimes even none, even no deposit, depending on how the contract is written. You could do the same thing. And so I love the idea of investors kind of learning how to wholesale real estate, and with the note aspect as well, because when you come into these situations, you don't know what you're going to find. And the more you know, the more money you're going to make, and the more networked you are. Just like Scott said, he put out the feelers and got he's in Texas and got a buyer for a property all the way in California. And so, just same thing with virtual wholesaling. I love the fact that I can sit at my computer and wholesale real estate anywhere in the country, because I've made connections, or where to connect. Just like you said, you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on this, but what my pet peeve is that so many people think they're going to go learn all this on their own. And instead of investing in someone like you to teach them and have access to you, they blow all that money on one mistake. And now, see, it doesn't work, or whatever.
We've all got to pay a learning curve, whether it's paying a mentor or a coach to come in and save you 6 months of grief and get you further along in 6 weeks than it would take most people in 6 years. You're going to end up paying, whether it's somebody's experience and them keeping you out of potholes, or you can go to the school of hard knocks and pay for it in mistakes and lost income and getting your teeth kicked in because you didn't know what you didn't know. A great example, I was at a foreclosure auction not too far ago, and a guy is dressed all in a suit and he's all excited. And the crier gets up there and starts talking about this one property. I'm looking at the numbers, like, well, that looks pretty good. And investor, he goes, no, it's a second mortgage of the guy. And the guy thinks, oh, the property's that. So the crier bids, 29,000 is opening bid. And the guy goes 29,100. And the guy goes, sold. And the guy walks up all excited. He's like, oh, I learned everything on YouTube. And everybody's just shaking their head because he didn't do the simple thing of pulling title and realize there's $150,000 first mortgage in front of the mortgage he just bid on. Now he's upside down by 30 grand before he even got into it.
Right.
And you gotta talk to people. Look, I get it. Podcasts, YouTube videos are great initially, but it's honestly, if you really want to go to 0 to 60 quickly, attend a workshop, get some coaching, get some mentoring. It'll be a lot better for you in the long run, especially for those that have limited funds. You don't want to go blow something on a deal and be in a negative position at that point. We've all been there.
Well, I heard someone say it so well. You can, spend the money on your own and you're going to get there eventually, or you can buy up your way up the ladder, because sooner. So somewhere I want to be in 5 years, if I just am willing to pay, I'm going to be there in 5 months, maybe, whatever the case may be. But not only that, if I tap into you and what you have to teach me, I've just tapped into your network. And that's one of the best things about being connected, like even with my students, because they don't have a database, but if they have a deal, we can sell it overnight because I've got the network or what have you. I had a lender, a hard money lender, reach out to me and he said, Sharon, I just took back a portfolio of 7 properties. And so can you off these for me, on your list? And so I helped, because I have access to folks like you, right? Do the due diligence, call people and see what we can get it sold for, and ultimately do the same thing. And not only that, he already had, the borrower's name and number to try and work things out with the borrower. And so, you know what, I love that aspect of it. And I've heard you talk about that before. And I think that'd be really good for our listeners, where you pick up the notes and maybe, you bought cheaper homes, you're somewhere and you actually have the capital to do it rather than foreclosing. Tell them about the option they have, that they could actually get this loan going again.
So that's that's our number one strategy, is actually to keep people in their houses.
Awesome.
And when we buy a note, that's our strategy. Now, this is a little bit different. We actually target occupied assets versus vacant assets, because we actually have more exit strategies when it comes to keeping people in their houses. And we can either try to get people to reinstate. That means they start making their existing payment. We'll just push the back payments to the back end of the loan. We can do a forbearance agreement, which is very popular out there, where they start making partial payments, or like their interest rate may stair step up, or stuff like that. Just gives them a payment plan to get back on track for 12 to 24 months. We allow somebody to assume their mortgage too. That people forget about this. Wow. We can allow somebody to come in and take over payments of that house. So we've had a lot of, especially you see that helping on a lot of elderly or divorce situations. Hey, do you have somebody that wants to come in and take over the payments? You sell your house with subject to financing available already. That doesn't work, then it's just a matter of, okay, there's one borrower in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. We bought this note cheap. She was elderly, on limited income. So we basically told her, listen, don't worry about paying the mortgage. Just take care of the taxes. We'll just do a deed in lieu and escrow, so that when you do pass, whenever it is, we'll take the house over at that point. But you live basically rent free, because it was just like, I paid $1,000 for as part of a portfolio. I'd rather just make sure that somebody's taking care of the property versus trying to rehab it and go from there and keep somebody in their houses. So, we've really helped a lot of people stay in their houses, thousands and thousands of people across America. And the beauty of that is, over time, it's great cash flow. So things are coming, and then things appreciate along the way too. Will then pay you off at full price in usually 6 or 7 years. And that's the beauty of it. Now, does every mortgage we buy end up get reperforming? No, we end up having to foreclose on our fair share as well too. But we always try to give the borrowers an opportunity to stay in the house. And it actually turns out to be our biggest bang for the buck, because we'll hold that for cash flow for a while. If we bought it at 50 cents, we can then turn around in 12 months after they've been paying on time, sell it back to the market at 85, 90 cents on the dollar without having to foreclose or do anything.
Yeah, I think that is the true blessing in the business. And so I'll wrap us up on this note. So, for the folks who follow myself and my husband, we really love to teach that the faith-based folks, how to be equipped to prosper. But it's not just about us, right? Like you said, you're able to keep this elderly woman. Where would she have gone, right? If her family's not helping her now, where are they going to show up? And I know I've heard you talk before of the amazing things that you've been able to do, because you're not the bank and you're not limited by red tape, and you could actually let your compassion lead when the right circumstances arise. And so I'd love for you to share a couple of instances where, you were able to do that, because you were the investor who you're making good money. You're getting paid to do what you do, but you're also bringing a service to people that most of the world doesn't realize that we are able to do, and would say, oh, look at that guy's a scumbag, but I love sharing that side of it.
So here's one that I tell the story pretty often. It's one that always kind of makes me smile at the end of the day. There's a family, William and Sheila, lived in South Beloit, Illinois, this little small town in southern Illinois. They lived in this house for 18 years, raised their 3 kids, their 3 daughters in this house. Market values went up, so they pulled an equity. They refinanced their house, pulled some equity out of their house. Well, about 6 months after that happened, the market took a dive. Their house went from being valued at roughly 60 to 75,000 down to 35,000. And unfortunately, William had a heart attack. He didn't die, but he was out of work for over a year. And this loan bounced around for over 4 years. And Sheila was trying to do a loan mod. And when we saw the packet, it was literally, I'm not joking, it was about a 2-foot tall packet, because it had all the loan docs. It had all these loan modification requests, and her mortgage had been sold 4 times in 4 years. So every time it got sold, she had to resubmit a package with tax returns and income statements and hardship letters. And this mortgage was part of another group of 35 we were looking at buying. We saw this. And I'm like, okay, looking through the collateral files as we see electronic, I was like, this lady's literally sent this in 4 times. She really wants to stay. And so we ended up buying the note really cheap. I mean, she owed house was only worth 35. She owed over 60, 65,000. We paid like I paid 10 grand for the note. I paid like 30 cents on the dollar of the value.
Wow.
I immediately reached out to her and I said, listen, hey, I'm your new bank. Basically, I'm your new lender. And you could hear just the wind going. She's like, oh, it's been sold.
Yeah.
I was like, well, no. I've seen your hardship statements. I said, listen, could you start making your existing payment again? He's like, yes, William's back to work now. We just couldn't make up the last 4.5 years of payments. Like, that's okay. Could you maybe bring 5 grand to the table? And she's like, no, I can't do that. Whenever we try to reinstate somebody, we always want to put some skin in the game. I said, well, could you bring 2,500 to the table? She's like, we could do that. I said, could you make an extra $200 a month on top of your monthly payment? She goes, yes, we could do that. I said, okay, Sheila, this is what we're going to do. You bring 2,500 to the table, you meet my attorney, you sign the trial payment plan, forbearance agreement plan, you pay $200 on top of your $466 monthly payment for the next 12 months. At the end of 12 months, we'll drop your interest rate to 0, okay? So that every penny you pay goes towards the principal. And then at the end of a year, if you want to, we'll reevaluate the property and just drop the balance down to what the actual value of the property is. So I'll forgive you like 20 grand of debt and your property's not worth that. And she's like, are you serious? I'm like, yes, I'm not joking. You can go meet my attorney. So sure enough, her and her husband showed up with a $25 check. They made payments on time. They just paid their house off like 2 months ago.
Oh, wow.
Instead of taking them 33 years to pay off, it took them just over 6 years. And they both cried at the closing table. They couldn't believe it. And
I'm going to cry.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, about 6 months into their agreement, I get a letter in the mail from Sheila and William, and there's a picture of their family. And they're like, we just want to say thank you so much for helping us stay in here. Our oldest daughter just had her firstborn. We named it Carson after you.
Oh my gosh.
I don't have any kids, but I got some kids, not that I know of anyway, but that's kind of the thing. And that's the thing, is that most people in America want to stay in their house. They want to do the good thing. And the biggest mistake I made as a note investor in my first year or two was trying to foreclose on anything. I didn't want to help people stay in their houses, or I would, try to do that route. And when I wasn't, wholesale on deals, look, there's a lot of people that want to stay, and an effective wholesaler, whether it's traditional real estate or notes or whatever, you understand and do due diligence of the property. You understand the story behind the story. The big mistake we see a lot of note wholesalers making, and see this across the board, they just put a list and just slap a list out there like spaghetti against the wall without really diving into what makes this deal special. What's the real value of the property? What's the legal status? How far along has foreclosure been started? Is the borrower expressed interest in staying? A lot of those things you'll find in due diligence by diving into it on the front end. And so it's just important, find out the story behind the story. Don't just trust Zillow. If you're close, take a good photo of the property, talk about the deal. That adds more value to investors, because note investors, we're looking at a lot of deals. We don't mind paying wholesale fees and making sure somebody makes money on it, as long as the deal makes sense.
Yes.
And goes, and that's the biggest thing. Make it a win-win. And there's been times that I went ahead and, I dropped our wholesale fee initially to small amount just to make a deal work, because I knew I was going to have more repeat business from that investor.
Yeah, smart business decision. I love it. I think you have a lot of meat in the limited amount of time that we have. And I know that there's so much more that you offer. And so where can folks find you, learn from you, and glean?
Really easy. You can go to weclosenotes.com, our website there. And one of the things I want to do for your audience, Sharon, is we teach a class, a one-day kind of cliff notes on note investing called Note Weekend. We always teach it the third Saturday of the month. If you're interested, your students, followers, they go to noteweekend.com. They can sign up for it. It's only $49, but if they type in the code Sharon, all caps Sharon, it'll drop it down to 0 for them. And so it's a full day of me teaching the basics of note investing, how to find, fund, and flip, and all the extra strategies that go along with, including wholesale.
Awesome. And I will put that across the bottom of our time here. And so thank you so much, Scott. I hope everybody learned a lot, and I think that you're going to have to just listen again so you can write down a lot of those tidbits that he gave. And I know that you can't go out and do what Scott just kind of taught us without the in-between due diligence. Okay. So, we're not telling you take what he just said and go do it. What we want to do is give you enough education to know this is something that's possible, and, something to chew on, that maybe it's possible for you, and to know that there is another option sometimes when you're sitting before these sellers, because for us, the win-win always starts with the seller. If we can make the seller happy, and sometimes that is keeping them in the home, sometimes it's serving that seller. I think the fruit of what we do for that seller is what profit is. And so we make our money doing that. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in, and go check out Scott's website and learn from his one-day event. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.